Character Options is an independent toy company based in the United Kingdom, founded in 1991. It has been responsible for designing, manufacturing a large range of toys and games to the public, and the reason you are all here, of course, is Doctor Who. The license for the range was obtained in 2005 and has continued into 2025 with no signs of slowing down. So sit back, set the coordinates to rewind the clock, relax and join us as we discuss character options over the last 20 years and take a peek behind the curtains of those early days and follow its journey until today with our special guests. So let's go. Hello and welcome to Who Cave Conversations, and today we're joined again by my friend and co-host Shane. How are you this morning, Shane?
Morning, evening and good night.
And below we're joined by Mr. Al Dewar, aka Emma Buller, and we're going to let the people out there work that out for themselves because even I had to think for a moment. How are you, Al?
I'm good. It's
nice to meet you, Emma.
You guys are waking up. I'm sort of drifting the other way, so I'm heading to
That's
sleep
right.
shortly. But yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm all right at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, today we're joined together again today because we want to discuss character's latest release, and I must say probably highly anticipated and wanted for a long time for a lot of people. We have the Master. So and he comes with a couple of accessories as well. So again, we're just going to work through the release itself and talk about the figure and its conception and little background story behind it. So I might start with just adding a little image for us to have a look at. There it is in all its glory. Master and TARDIS Vortex edition figure set. So looking pretty good, Al.
Yeah.
And obviously the reuse of the TARDIS column, which is good to see again. So maybe Al, just talk us through a little bit about the introduction of this figure, obviously being the next in the Vortex range. Little bit of background.
Yeah, this one, like most figures, has been being worked on in the background for a while. This is the third release from the character options exclusives for 2025. Packaging is, I believe that now. This is a good question. I might stand corrected, but I believe it's the Fifth Doctor style guide it's in, but it could be the generic one because it's blue. I'm just looking at it there because in fact, it might well be the generic one because he met the fifth and sixth and first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Sorry. So he met a few doctors. So I think it is a generic packaging. What you can't see here, but obviously people will know by this point, is behind him is the control room from the top of the Earth-based Pharos project radio telescope. I was looking for a suitable background for this one, and for some reason it never clocked to me that the TARDIS actually materialized up there, but I was looking at the behind-the-scenes shots, and very obviously it is tucked away in the corner, so we've got a nice little bit of a diorama in there. But yeah, it's been a while coming, this one. I've always deflected and said I'd only do it if we could do it properly, so hopefully this will make people happy.
Was this one of the delayed figures?
Yeah, well, and if that question is this the figure that caused the delay of the rest, yes, the answer is yes. So there was a couple of issues that came up that took a while to solve, and because they took a while to solve, and he couldn't release on time. There was a very narrow window where we could actually get everything in for 2026, but it would have been a massive ask for the Oldham marketing and sort of posting guys, because we'd have had 3 figures going out at the back end of the year in very rapid succession. So the decision was taken for the final one for 25 to get bumped to 26 to the beginning of 26.
To clarify for that situation, although it's now October and this has come out in October, there is still one more release to come before Christmas.
Yes.
So, you know, people may think in their mind, oh, that's it for the year. No, there is still another release to come. So,
yeah, no, there was going to be two. There's definitely one more for this year.
I know it's been a bombardment of Doctor Who figures September, obviously with all the B&M stuff coming out, but this is clearly October's release, and there's still one more before Christmas, so it's bumper end of the year, really.
Yeah, it's one of the slight niggles about the B&M stuff, because you can never quite put your finger on when that's going to get released. So sometimes it coincides with the release of a character options, and sometimes it doesn't.
Looking at that image on screen right now, I mean, that is light years improvement upon anything that's coming out in the B&M range as far as a character figure goes, Daleks aside. It looks absolutely amazing. But let's start touching onto that.
Yeah, just a little bit of history, maybe, to this guy.
Well, so I originally this guy is very much a hybrid, which is really the first time that's happened. So Ed Barnett Ward, Affable, was commissioned to do the original sculpt, and the basis of that was going to be the Delgado Master, ironically, strangely enough. So it uses the Delgado legs. And then, so Ed did the Sirius head, which is the one on the right as we're looking at it here. I kind of felt that what we should be doing with the Vortex editions is moving away from that slightly static, neutral look that we'd had for the Master. I kind of wanted a little bit more expression in the face, so I then went and commissioned Andrew Teal at Designworks to do an alternative version of the head, which was with what I felt was a little bit more expressive, which was the classic sort of sneer. And depending on how you kind of catch it in the light, either looks slightly like he's sneering or slightly like he's smiling, but it doesn't really matter. So that's why we ended up with two different heads. And then I thought that was quite cool, because having gone down that road with the Meep, it was quite nice to have the idea of popping off the heads and swapping the heads over. So I was quite happy with that.
Yeah.
And then further down the line, what happened was we got to a point where I got the first production. So this is some of the reasons that bumped everything backwards. But essentially, I got some first shots, and I put the TCE in the Master's hands and realized it looked like a microphone. That it was not pointing forwards. So I then
it was held like upright.
Yeah, a little bit too upright. Couldn't quite get that sort of forward look.
Yeah.
So I then commissioned Andrew to further change it in that he then did the new. I can't remember if he did both hands. Ed might have done the left hand, but I think Andrew normally does them in pairs. But either way, so Andrew did that new right hand to hold the TC. Also, it didn't really hold the TC particularly well, the first version of the hand, the way we'd made it. So I wanted it to hold it a little bit better. So anyway, so he redid the hand, and then the bigger issue came along later when there was a problem with the PVC wrap on the body looking not right, because it essentially created a step between the front of the PVC wrap of the penguin suit and a drop down to where the hips were, and supply me a new front of hips sculpt with the 6 little buttons, the sort of cavalryman type buttons high that goes up and across. So that's some of the reasons that essentially bumped it all down the lines. And then when we got to the deco, there was a couple of issues. There was a couple of issues with the teeth. And I think you've got a slide that sort of shows where I annotated it and said, chop these teeth off, because they painted the teeth right the way across. And he looked a bit
Cheshire Cat.
He looked a bit Cheshire Cat, stroke Ryland, stroke, he just was a bit too toothy. It's always the same with the Paint Master. You can see it works quite well, but then there's a defined recess in at the corners of his mouth. And that's the painted tooling model. But when you get to the production one, you can see that recess at the corner of the mouth doesn't
goes all the way.
So it ends up being so. And the trouble with the guys in TARDIS is I was like, I can't do another Paint Master. It's just ridiculous. So this is just my annotated sketch saying, basically don't paint these, literally don't paint these little bits on the corner. And that essentially fixed the problem. And then the color was the other issue. So you'll see that the color on the left as you're looking at it, has silver. And then the color on the right is actually two tones. So the center is gold and the outside is a mixture of silver and gold. So it's good. I just felt it wasn't showing the brocade. Yeah. The detail is on the collar, but it's almost lost in terms of the physical detail. So I felt that in order to get that, and we tried it gold, we tried it silver, and it's not. If you look at all the images, I don't know whether it fades, because some brocade is, I think, done almost with a wire type material, an actual wire or metallized thread. But anyway, it's got a very distinctive outside heavy stage and then the infill in the middle. So there was a bit of dicking around with that to get that to look right as well.
But
that was a good image to show off the two-tone of the hair as well.
Yes.
We had the highlight brushing over the top of the hair.
Yeah, and that was something else that I asked for as well, was a wash in the hair. It kind of came back. Yeah, standard.
The temptation's obviously there to go black hair, black suit, black this, black beard, but to actually give it a bit of a...
Yeah, and I was sort of keen to. Well, that was part of the argument I had about the color and most of the other details. Was I must have changed the deco in that figure about 10 times just because I was like, we need a more matte suit. We need a more matte suit. And then originally the shoes were matte and they looked weird. So I changed those. And then the gloves were gloss and that looked weird. So I changed those. So it is black, but it's a bit, it was just, and then the argument I had was, there's literally one bit of decoration on this guy and it's the collar. So we can't screw that up.
Yep.
It just goes to show you that the challenges faced, I guess, as we've discussed previously in a lot of these videos, where you go from the initial concept figure, going through to your Paint Master, and then getting that translation from the Paint Master through to the final product. There's a lot of people in between that you've got to have discussions with, and obviously it comes backwards and forwards. And ultimately, their vision versus what yours is of what you want to see can be different at times, and you've got to point that out.
And it always changes. You supply a Paint Master and then you see the production one and something's not right and you change it. So the TARDIS as well is a different color from the one that we released with the David.
Is that the mold for the column?
Pardon?
The mold for the column, the same one from 2010?
It is, but I'll tell you a weird thing. That the new one is bigger than the old one and it's the same tool. And I don't know how that is.
Wow.
But
the old one suffered from shrinkage or something? Was it an environmental factor? It was colder or something? Or
don't know, unless they remade some of the tooling. But it's a weird little fact. But yeah, so that TARDIS, the original the one that appeared with Davidson was based on how it appeared in in Logopolis. It's a little bit lighter. But weirdly, in the next few stories, it changes color right up to Time Flight, where it essentially goes brown. And I did look at that. I've got some on my desk in various colors. But the brown just felt a bit boring and muddy. So I kind of jumped halfway in between. So it's kind of back to where sort of it's darker than the original release, but it's, I think, better. It's a little bit more subtle than the deco on the original.
And we're looking at this image here, obviously, with the tissue compression eliminator in his two forms that we get in the pack. Obviously, we have the closed and open version, as we've been discussing, and I can see what you mean about the hand and holding it on the right angle as well. But it looks quite good in those images there.
That's a figure I've got handy right now, which sort of does show what you're illustrating, the way it sits more upright.
More upright.
Hand.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because that left hand image is flipped, so he's holding it in his left hand, but actually it's a flip of his right hand. But yeah, so it looks.
It's just a reversed image, just to give an indication for those who are watching. And obviously, we've got two little accessories there. If we want to talk through that.
Casket, as seen in the TV movie, the Gallifreyan. So it's got the scribed Gallifreyan scrolls.
Rassilon seals, Rassilon logo
on the side of it, and the sort of velvet interior, and then the little brass. I think I came up with a funky name for it, like Matrix Interment Orb, which is the bit that you see the Doctor placing into the casket just before he seals it up. And so, yeah, partly because in my head canon, which doesn't necessarily have to align with anyone else, but in my head canon, the Master that gets, apparently it's right, but and it went through approval, so I must be right.
Well, I always assumed it was the Ainley Master.
My assumption is that the Ainley, the Master that died, which we only saw in silhouette, but my assumption is the Master that got exterminated by the Daleks and became this morphin death worm is the Ainley Master.
Well, they want to run with the continuation, isn't it? The TV movie was after, obviously, Survival, so that's a logical option, is that Master, unless someone wants to come up with another theory, he was the last Master that was seen from a television point of view. So then you go into the TV movie, which is the continuation of the story from McCoy. So
yeah, and then in between you've got the Schalke Doctor and the Schalke Master, which weirdly is played by Derek Jacobi again. But for me, that's not the Master that got.
So to touch on the accessories, obviously those two are from the TV movie.
Yes.
Looking at other options that could have been made for the Ainley Master, I've racked my brain a bit the last few days on this, and they would all be very, very small little devices. I mean, you've got a small device in Logopolis that he uses to communicate to the peoples of the universe. It's just all small things, to the point where actually yesterday I made this little unit. I printed this off with the idea of doing a little seal of Rassilon.
There's three. Yeah, there's three accessories.
9 millimeters.
There's three accessories that we could have included. One was the Transmat Recall,
which is technically actually smaller than this.
Which is smaller than that. Which is bicycle bell with a button on it. One is the seal of Rassilon, which is what you've got there.
Yeah.
And then the other one we looked at was, funnily enough, the box that the miniature Master is in Planet of Fire. But again, that pulls you back into the chameleon Master kind of faff.
Yeah.
And that would have been a big chunk of tooling, and it wasn't really something that you could use. And then I guess the other one is the one that you've created, which is the cloak from which is the book from the Five Doctors.
Five Doctors. That's something I made up yesterday as well to utilise my old custom.
Which is cool. And I like that. It was just too big an accessory for us to even like that.
Yeah, I think you got to look at the viability too, don't you? Like I said, those two other accessories that, especially the seal that Shane held up, it's quite small. I know there's been small accessories before, but when you're talking, the Vortex range, you have to have a couple of extra bits. You've got the, TCE, you've got the two versions of that, plus you've got the casket and the orb. So,
well, I felt it was important to have something reasonably meaty in there, and I am a big fan of the TV movie, and I've always loved that casket. So for me, it kind of made sense that it should.
The other option, if you even do a third head, for example, if you did one that was maybe the survival version, it doesn't suit the costume he's in. So that's that out. Now, I think the size and the choice of accessories applicable for the overall Doctor Who-ness of the range.
I think it will be one that will throw the fans out. I mean, it was already when certain images got out, but it was. I think there was a question mark of. It was almost the thing that threw them was like, well, why would it can't be character options because why would they include the Gallifreyan casket? But that's the. I like how you've got Peter Davidson brandishing the corpse. Nice.
Yes. So just a sort of a comparison to show our original column release with how it was released, with obviously minus the Devo TARDIS, but just to give a bit of perspective for it. And there's another use of a very small accessory there with that tiny little figure that was from the episode as well.
Thought about including that as well, actually, but I kind of felt it wasn't. When you see it, it's not actually particularly good, and I couldn't see a way to paint it to make it better.
Too small.
The smaller the accessories.
Is the Scarus and recall device, isn't it? That little itty bitty Scarus device is about that.
Yeah. I think they're all viable. I'm sure people have favourites,
but it's like half a gram of plastic. That's all that would be. It's just
no, and it's. I mean. I like including accessories. It's one of the things with the Vortex range I'm actually really enjoying is what accessories can we put with this figure, or you can't on certain figures. It's just not viable depending on size and shape. And
I've also got, just to go hark back to the 2010 Chameleon figure. As I keep getting stand corrected, it's not the Master, it's Chameleon. But I just wanted to show some comparisons of how far character have come in relation to obviously making figures. Obviously, it's a completely new head, but just looking at the way that things were originally put together, and back then the paint standards, obviously, so we're talking 2010 versus now 2025. So a big difference in how these figures are made, and obviously the big difference with the Vortex range moving into that highly paint deco. But you can actually see the front and slightly side profiles of the figure, and what we thought was still a great figure. But when you look at it up close, the paint decals compared to nowadays is a big change, isn't it?
It's funny, isn't it? Because in hand, that figure doesn't look bad. In fact, arguably, it's one of the better ones. You in hand, that left hand figure, you go, oh, that's 100% the only Master Chameleon, and it looks really cool. And then you stand it next to that, and it looks like somebody chewed a bit of popcorn and slapped some paint on it. And it's like,
and that is a proper recent photo. Yeah, I just grabbed that from the collection and stuck it in my light box and took a couple of close-ups. So, as said, in hand, on its own, looks great, but when you start comparing it, there is a little bit of a difference. But yeah, just rehashing. So initially you said the head was done, the new Vortex head was done with the Sirius only head, and then obviously Andrew's gone away and done the smiley grinny face for you.
That was the way it panned out. So Ed did the upper body and the sleeves. Andrew did the front of the crotch, the hands, I think. Certainly one, possibly. I would be surprised if he didn't do two so that they matched. And then the grinning, sneering, I like to think of it, version of the head.
So is it fair to say then, I mean, this has been requested for almost 15 years since that first one came out, the Ainley in the penguin suit. Is it fair to say that it could almost never have been done to this level of quality in any time in the past in those 15 years? So had we had something brought out, say, 7 years ago, it would maybe be more like the one on the left with another jacket altercation.
The game changer was the 15th. I mean, like it, the era or not. The game changer was the 15th Doctor and Ruby figures because they set the benchmark. I wanted to do them completely differently, and we did. And I'm not saying we got everything right, by the way, but it so changed the game that the backwash and the fallout from those figures essentially pushed or pulled everything uphill. So there is no way an action figure would look like this one does if it hadn't been for the 15th Doctor and Ruby.
I mean, to illustrate that, I've just pulled that out of my drawer where you're talking about obviously the head joint there, the arm joints,
the whole thing,
everything. The way it's all constructed is completely
the level of detail, the painted, using the. I know we were beginning to do it, but using the paint straight onto the plastics, that kind of deco rather than.
And even that sort of chest sculpting, wasn't achieved in the past.
Which is one of the reasons it's caused a problem, because the reality is, and it's happened on a couple of figures, where trying to take an old figure and bolt new bits onto it when the new bits are so much better is not. It doesn't always work. You guys are aware of, but so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it just won't work. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. This is one of the occasions where I think we just about get away with it. In an ideal world, it would have been an all new figure, but there just wasn't the budget for it. I have to cut the cloth. But yeah, in an ideal world.
Something else we discussed offline briefly is the use of the Ainley image. Obviously, because 2010 we've had the chameleon / master figure, and obviously now there's a big. We've got it now. I think we discussed this offline. Was there any issues, or it may be raised from people out there watching? Was there any issues in relation to the use of Ainley's image via estates or whatnot?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think you're referring to myth busting. There was always this myth that the Anthony Ainley estate was in some way blocking the creation of a new action figure. That was never the case. It was purely and simply me holding off until we could kind of do it better or do it properly. But it was fine. It helped me in some ways that myth was there, because people would see it as, oh yeah, they can't do that, because I think had they known that there was absolutely no issue, the cries would have been louder.
Yeah. No, so.
And actually, weirdly, we're going back to your previous question or point, was in the press release I've said basically this is the action figure that fans have been waiting for. I think it works out as about 40. If you take it linearly from when he first appeared, at least it works out as something like 44 years for this action figure to, have appeared even before when we had the license. But if you work linear wise, it's 44 years. So I make some joke about fans have been waiting 44 years for this figure to make an appearance.
Well, you're going to have a lot of fans.
Years, other figures.
And it'll go across a lot of the range of the figures too in the classic range, because obviously that outfit was party to quite a few episodes. And with two heads, obviously people can, buy a couple of sets and stick them in little dioramas like I have, and they can put in with their 5 doctors, or they can
Put a cape on one.
Sorry?
Put a cape on one.
Yeah.
Well, that's this one's interesting. I think obviously at the time of recording, it's not technically, I suppose, happened yet, but there's less of these, but there's a certain amount going to the US.
Yep.
For distribution. There's a note there. So X number has been assigned on the basis that the US, we still haven't figured out Australia, which is a bit unfair, but so folk in the US will buy it through the UK website, but it'll actually be distributed from the USA. And I think this figure will be more than a little bit popular. So I think there might be a few disgruntled people come end of play on the 14th of October. Because
just to touch on this one, what's the retail price this is going to hit for?
Same as before, $44.99. So,
and I think they'll be probably limited to 2 per order. I think
it's still limited to 2 per order, but like I say, where there would have been 4,000, take away usually 150, 200 in case which they always keep and then sell off, but they always keep those as backup in case there's any problems with manufacturing, which shouldn't be. So there's going to be a hell of a scramble for what is arguably one of the most wanted figures. So
I'm going to make an anticipated guess or an educated guess that once the character site goes live with these guys, that they're going to sell, as you said, very, very quickly. It's been on the highly sought after list for a lot of fans. Obviously, there's a lot of fan-made customs out there because obviously, as Shane's killer test as a customizer, it's been on a wish list for a lot of people for a long time. So I think you're right. I think this figure...
I think they'll sell out in day one is my prediction. If they don't, I'll be very surprised. But I think they'll sell out, and I think there'll be a lot of angst, and people are kind of assuming there'll be a reorder, but there won't be because the MOQ on a reorder is another 3,000 pieces, and that's never going to happen. So it is going to be a case of if you haven't got it, you're not getting it because it's not coming back.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on this previously, Al. I think the way the action figure market has changed over the time, making them multiple thousands and thousands. We're going back to the good old days of 2010 when 30,000+ figures were put out there, but we're not talking that demographic anymore. So it's more of a niche market, I guess, and it's across the board for a lot of action figure ranges. They're not being made in the larger quantities. There's a shift, I guess, with it's mainly collectors now, I guess, that are guys or people our age and a little bit younger that are holding on to those, reminiscent of growing up as a kid watching stuff and then having little representations of what they watched as a kid. Is that's with a lot more of that going on too now.
I think you're right. I think there's also quite a divide between classic and new series. I'm sure I was at the BFI, sorry, the other week, the Beefy, Freudian slip. There's still a bunch of people that will buy anything and everything classic, but the minute it moves into New Who, they're kind of like, well, if I don't 100% need it, I'm not that bothered about it. And yet there's the other side where people absolutely love the new stuff and less keen on the old stuff. So,
Well, sidetracking, you did have the opportunity to go to the BFI, and so how was the Terror of the Zygons?
It was really it was really good. It was really good. I got to meet a couple of really cool guys. I met Mike Tucker, who I enjoy his presence immensely. He's just one of these guys you can listen to for ages. So he was involved on the animation side, and he was explaining just the ridiculousness, the speed at which they had to record this garrison sort of coming
the frame
up.
rate of everything.
Rob also was there, and he'd actually done the fabrication of the garrison puppet. I have to say, I mean, it was a very clean print, other than a couple of slightly fuzzy exterior shots. It has been cleaned up. It has been stabilized. I was surprised at the level. The effects, the new effects as such, are quite subdued. There's only a couple of places where I kind of noticed and went, "Oh, that's a new effect." There's the bit where the Doctor gets electrified by the Zygon ship as he's trying to sort of short circuit it. There's a new sort of effect in the back of that, but most of the original model shots are actually there. They've just cleaned it up. But the garrison is very, very different. It's noticeably.
I don't know if you've seen it yourself, El, but I watched some of the Ray Harryhausen animation of the skeletons in Argonauts, and they actually sped up the frame rate to match what it should have been, and they are almost flawless. I think it looks funny when the frame rates are slightly slower on some of those animated animatronics they used to do in the day.
Well, that's what Mike was saying about garrison. He said that they had to shoot it. I think he said at 125 frames a second and then slow it down. So he said they literally, because this garrison comes over and goes, "Rawr," and then turns, and then and he was saying they literally filmed it like, "Rawr," and it was, so he said it was quite challenging to kind of get it right. But you're right. I think it's kind of how they fixed it. I don't know if you've seen the stuff where Peter Jackson's fixed a bunch of the First World War trench film that was done, and then what they did was they cleaned it up, and of course it was always that very exactly what you're talking about, that very stilted kind of action and people running over the top, and it's all got kind of, and exactly the same thing. Once you stabilize it and once you run it at the correct frame rate, it's so real because
it just brings it. Oh, hang on.
Literally, people are doing what they should have been doing in the first place. It looks normal.
And speaking of Scarrison, there's something on the wish list for character.
Now, I looked into this. In scale, if you were to make a scale narrative Scarrison, it would be 60 centimeters tall as a hand puppet.
Yeah, but look at the Drashig.
It would be this tall. You could put 2 arms up it. It'd be huge.
You'd have to take a few liberties, unfortunately.
It's a beautiful puppet. It's absolutely beautiful. The one that they've renamed.
Neil Cole has the original.
Neil Cole. I met him, and he is a lovely bloke. And so there was restoration done on the original, which they brought out, and then Rob Alsop fabricated the new one, and then Mike animated and filmed the new one with all its puppet bits and pieces inside.
No, fantastic.
Amazing. Really good.
No. You have the privilege of...
Baker. It's brilliant. I just... Every time I go to the BFI and I see one of those, I get lost in that Saturday night feeling of just a blue time tunnel and somewhere new every week. And something happens and everybody dies, nobody dies, some people die.
I really like some of the horror shots in Terror of the Zygons when it's almost Hammer-like. Particularly that scene in the barn where you've got Harry coming out of the shadows and then falling onto the pitchfork, and and the pure terror on Sarah's face. It is
Backup,
very
that backup Zygon is terrifying. That bit where the thing comes at her when she's on the phone and it's like, and it's
great. Yeah.
Jesus Christ! Every single time that scares the shit.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm trying to get my boy into classic Who again. He watched it when he was a lot younger, but he's tending to go to the new. But we sat down, as we discussed offline, we watched Robot the other day, and that was interesting. The amount of questions and why is it broken into 4 episodes, Dad? I don't understand, because we just watch it as one big thing. I said, well, it's how it used to be, mate. You'd wait half an hour episode and a week later would be the next one, and he just couldn't quite compute that because of with the
Weird though,
streaming.
isn't it? How Doctor Who just got faster and faster as it went on. You know, even the Tom Baker stuff seems sort of slow now, and then you get to Sylvester McCoy, and they were fast to the point where they made no sense until somebody added all the missing material back.
And now it's fast to the point that if you miss one line of dialogue, you've lost the whole plot of the episode.
Yeah. So my challenge will be to sit my boy down to watch Terror of the Zygons, and hopefully he enjoys it as much as I do. But we'll see.
I think Zygons is a fairly safe bet, actually.
Yes. No, that's good. Well, thanks for sharing with that little bit of the BFIL, because we don't quite have the privilege over here of attending as such great events.
I wasn't, to be honest, somebody phoned me up the day before and said, you've got a ticket, but you've got to go on stage.
There's always a catch, Al. There's always a catch.
I was like, this could be good or bad. This could go one or two ways. They'll thank God they didn't do a Q&A, because I think I would have got crucified by.
Did you get bombarded with questions?
I had a few questions afterwards from actually really nice people that just, it's one of the reasons I like the BFI. They tend to come up and say, thanks for doing stuff. Thanks for keeping the line going. Really enjoy your work. See you later. But yeah, it's nice.
Well,
it's nice from that point of view. You don't get people just gunning you.
Well, I think the classic fans are always going to be grateful for what character and yourself have done. Obviously, we've discussed previously you're very passionate about the classic series and certain elements of it, and which influenced some of those very early releases, which I think a lot of people are grateful for. So, so I think you're going to an event based on the classic series. So yeah, there's a lot of appreciation. So,
I find myself sitting there wondering what a Vortex edition Vok robot would look like, and then I thought, no, I can't do that. I'll get
Vortex edition Zygon L.
Yeah, with interchangeable heads. How many heads do we want?
It's weird. That's the first time I've ever noticed that Broton's head is completely different. He's about a foot taller. His head is bigger and has the tubes on it are much higher, like a very important Centurion's crest, and then the bloke Zygon is
embryonic.
Is smaller and more embryonic. And there's actually the female one that I think they actually put the nurse lady in her suit. So so yeah, there's a bunch, but yeah, it's quite noticeable how different they are.
And of course,
one is infinitely more terrifying.
It's funny how the memory cheats, isn't it, when we watch it as a young person, and then you realise that there's multiple different ones. I mean, we look at the character option figures there. I've got a few of those sitting over there looking at me, but then when you realise that their heads are all different. So rewinding back, any closing thoughts on our new Vortex, dialing it back to our Vortex release Master?
Well, Shane normally has a barrage of questions, so I'm waiting for those.
It's very early. Yeah, look, I really think this looks like an amazing sculpt, and I just want to reiterate that I don't think it could ever have been achieved at any other time in the character options history, if you like. That it could have come to this level of quality, and the character deserved it. He was obviously very big in the 80s, and it has been called upon for so many years that everyone wanted this figure. There's probably only about 2 or 3 others that everyone's really screaming for. So
I don't
yeah,
know what
I
they're
think
gonna
this is
ask for in the
this is
next
a
20
knock out of
years.
the park.
Yeah,
Was that sorry?
I said I'm not sure what they're going to ask for now after Aiden leaves.
Well, there's a certain kilted fella that people always want to have, so I'll
Right.
put my voice into that choir.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that was one name that came up at the BFI.
So you did get a bit heckled.
I did
Well,
get. Well, it's always a double-edged sword or an iron fist and a velvet glove. It's always kind of, I love your stuff, and when are you doing this? So
Why haven't I got this figure?
yeah.
I want this
yeah.
figure.
Well, as we know, well,
It's actually one I would love to do. It's just a complete brand new figure. I don't want to do Jamie in a boiler suit or Jamie in a crappy outfit. It's got to be Jamie in a kilt, and
Yep.
that's a whole new figure.
well, you even had it from the man himself. I think Fraser Hines asked you the same question. Where's my figure? Remember
Fraser gets everyone to ask me for the action figure.
that?
Everyone.
But as we've discussed, it would be a completely new figure, and obviously we've gone through this previously in other chats about the process and concepts and costs that go towards making a brand new figure completely. So, unfortunately, there are some limitations, I guess, when you're only able to make so many units as well.
Well, in an ideal world, I'd only make stuff I want, and it would probably all be classic. But it's not an ideal world, and you have to kind of cater to everybody. So I think, as far as next year goes, I think next year is going to be, if it all comes together, it's going to be brilliant. It'll be quite different, and I think people will hopefully be quite excited about it. But and there isn't a Jamie figure in there, so that's not where I'm going. Just in case anyone.
To dispel any of those.
You on record with that one, Al, or is it going to be one of those? Ha! I fooled you all along.
The minute you say
guess,
it's not impossible and time will tell, people go, it's in next year's line. It's honestly not.
Yeah. No, look, and I think that's as far as projecting forward. How are we looking with character and projecting the future? No, we can't share anything specific, but obviously,
well, like I say, we're good up to 26. I shared it with Kenny, but I pitched my proposal, which was a little bit different for next year, to the gods. That was all signed off, so that's all happening. The only difference is that if it goes to plan, we have to show everything right at the start to everyone. So we'd be exposing the entire line. So rather than it being piecemeal as it is at the moment, we would essentially be saying, this is our range for the year and this is what's coming. So that's a slight change of tack, and it means I'm having to do a lot of work up front to make that.
Well, essentially something you've worked on for over a period of time will all have to be into this period of time.
Yeah. And there's some easy stuff and there's some really quite difficult stuff. So the hope is that.
Clarity, you're referring to the character options exclusives. You're not talking about the B&M range and anything.
Yeah, like character options exclusives.
Yeah.
The one casualty, the one thing I did pitch was I tried my hardest to pitch the console room concept that I put together of the Fifth Doctor console as a sort of subscribe. But that hit a brick wall. I think people felt, that these figures were probably enough for the year. And even though people say they want something, it would have been about £250,000 worth of investment. And I don't think they were quite prepared to go for that. So that went, but everything else went through. And
so as far as the future, let's just say watch this space is probably the safest thing to say.
Yeah, well, I think we're good through to 26, and I'm hoping 27, but I think 27 is license renegotiation year, if I'm right, because it's usually a 3-year contract. So I think we renewed at the end of 24. So I think we've got 25. No, that can't be right. I think we got, sorry, tell a lie. So we might even be up end of this year, but it's either this end of this year or end of next year. So we'd have to renegotiate.
And it's just segueing a little bit to obviously the figure range and moving on. The B&M range of stuff, is that going to continue on for a little while?
As far as we know, I've got prototypes. Half the stuff is done. I've got half the figures done already. The other two sets I'm trying to change the format a little bit, but the other two figures I might change. I'm not sure I've got the part of the reason is they what I've proposed requires a degree of tooling, and frankly, if one, the B&M budget shouldn't really have tooling in it, and two, if I need it, I'm going to steal it back for the main line, or what I call the main line, which is a character option. So there's two figures that may or may not fall.
But essentially, the B&M range you said was essentially repaints these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I'm just sort of reconsidering it. So
yeah, very good. All right, chaps. Well, I think we've covered off a bit and a little bit extra today in relation to Al's BO5 visit, but we'll. It's just nice to know those sort of things.
I like your display, Mark. You've got that lovely blue lighting going on. Where's your lighting, Shane? That's my question. Where's?
There we go.
I
feel it's a bit shinier now on the old chrome dome, or the new chrome dome rather.
Yeah, I like that. I like the new haircut. That's cool.
Any closing thoughts before we sign off for today?
Well, my only thoughts are obviously this is pre-release, and hopefully it all goes well and there's no issues, and I don't think there is, but
we'll be chatting again soon, but again before Christmas with another release getting squeezed in between.
Yes, we will. But...
and there is still one release coming early next year that would have been this year, before your 26 plans.
Yeah, and that's the one that got. So the Master, with his issues, bumped everything back. And there was, like I say, there was a very small window. There was a small window of opportunity. It could have been done. In fact, it was still on the plan to be done. And actually, it was the marketing guys that went, that's just a bit tight. They're in the middle of doing a complete revamp of the character website. And one of the showcase big things that they're doing is going to be the Doctor Who stuff. So they just felt that if they're revamping the website and the ordering process and everything else, they just felt that 3 sets coming bang, 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 one after the other.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It was so tight, it would have been, recipe for disaster.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Al, and discussing the latest Vortex release, which will be available now by the time this video goes out. And obviously, it'll be highly
sold
anticipated
out by the time the video goes out.
Sorry?
Hopefully sold out by the time the video goes out.
I think we've had that discussion. It's anticipated to sell very, very quickly. So by the time this conversation comes out, they might be out of stock. Anyway, moving along. But thanks again, guys. Stay tuned. There will be more content coming. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for some more fun, exciting information about characters' releases coming up soon. So thanks again, guys, for joining us, and see you all next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye for now.